Hey, welcome to Mind Your Own Biz, the podcast where we help small business owners with big dreams build something authentically you. I'm Alicia Yervis, educator, marketer, designer, nacho enthusiast, and your big sister in business. I'm excited for us to have this cozy spot to chat. Each episode, we'll tackle candid conversations, actionable tips, and a few fun tangents to help you run your business your way. Because business is always personal, no matter what anyone says. So grab your iced coffee or those nachos and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Mind Your Own Biz. My name is Alicia Yervis. I'm your host, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm really excited to welcome our guest. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But one of the things that we're going to focus on in this episode is support in terms of, being an entrepreneur can be lonely. And, not everyone around you understands the ins and outs of what you do day to day, all the things you deal with. And, if you're trying something new, or maybe, if things aren't going so well just yet, it can be hard to, get buy-in from others and, really make them see that, or make them see what's possible, and that, it takes time, and we might not be exactly where we want to be just yet, but we're heading in the right direction. And sometimes we just need support when we're feeling not supported or not understood, with a lot of what goes into being a small business owner. And our guest is going to talk with us about all of that stuff. But on the topic of support, I want to make sure to mention at the top that I have a bunch of free resources to support you in your entrepreneur life. So if you head to aliciayervis.com/freebies, I've got a bunch of freebies on my website to help you in all different aspects of your business, from content planning to website revisions to social media to graphic design, email marketing, online reviews. I have a small business toolkit, which is a breakdown of platforms and widgets and things that I love to use. I've got a free Facebook group that you can join called the Help Desk, where I share tips and advice and strategies. And my newest freebie is called VA 101. How to reclaim your time by hiring a virtual assistant. If you listened back a few episodes, episode 7, you met my very own virtual assistant, Caitlin, and she and I collaborated on that episode and creating this free guide to help you get some support in your business as well. But even if you're not ready to hire a VA, head to aliciayervis.com/freebies and scoop up a bunch of the other freebies that I have there for you, because I truly want to help you. Okay, so moving on to today's guest, I am so excited to welcome Malka Neustadter. She is a certified marriage, parenting, and life coach for women. She has always loved stories. She read at an early age and looked forward to weekly library visits with her mom, and English was always her best subject at school. So obviously, an English major in college, Malka also studied anthropology, the story of human culture and history, the stories we tell about where we came from and how we became who we are. As the daughter of parents who did not get along and eventually divorced, Malka was always interested in why some families are happy and others are not. She was determined that she would one day have a happy family, so every time something didn't feel quite right, she was anxious. Studying being the way she knew to learn things, she took tons of classes and workshops, first as a participant and later as a trainee. And for the past 20 years, Malka has learned and taught about the stories we tell ourselves about our family life, how we see ourselves, our partners, our kids, and anyone else in our family circle. Who are the good guys, the bad guys, and how things are supposed to work out. She uses her understanding of story and of family dynamics to help women at every stage, from pre-marriage classes through the crises women experience in marriage and momming, as well as issues women with older kids face as they take on new and changing roles as mother-in-law, grandmother, and more. Malka is now 56 and married to her husband for 29 years. Together, they've raised 6 kids, the youngest still in high school, and they have one grandchild. So I've known Malka for several years now. I think that she is an amazingly brilliant and wise woman. She's also really funny, and I just love chatting with her. So I'm very excited to welcome Malka Neustadter. Hi, Malka. Thank you so much for being on the show. I knew that I wanted to speak with you as one of my first guests when I was starting this podcast because I've known you for several years now, and I just love our discussions. And I always learn something new after I speak with you all the time. And so I wanted to introduce you to my audience and have you have you help us out here because I know
That's what I'm
that
here for.
I know that a lot of us out here, whether we're married or not, whether we have kids or not, we are women in business who struggle with our support systems or lack
Mhm.
thereof, or, struggle with our relationships, whether that's friendships, whether that's kids, whether that's, siblings, parents, whatever it is, spouse. Um, and so before we start getting into some of these strategies and ways that we can kind of deal with those situations and maybe get some support and some tips, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and how you came into this work, and how it's helped you too in your life and in your relationship. So take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I also really love our conversations. Um, and I will also just tell everybody that I was in your mini mind and it's great and they should do it. But now I'll go back. Now I'll go back to me. So how did I get into this work? First of all, my work is mostly about family life.
Hmm.
Your relationship with your partner, your kids, your mom, his mom, sisters, brothers, like anybody
Hmm.
in your family. Um, and I got into it because family is my passion. And I think, like so many people, it started because I had ideas about what my family should have been like and wasn't
Mm.
when I was growing up. Both of my parents, who are both gone now, were people in the sense that my father was a psychiatrist. What really fascinated him was, what makes people tick? How do people work? How come some people look like they're totally winning at life and other people don't? When on the outside, they don't seem so different. Like it doesn't, you can't always pin it on their socioeconomic status. They were poor, they were rich. There's rich people who are miserable and poor people who seem to have happy family life. Like it seems to be something beyond just the externals that you can measure
Hmm.
about what makes a person not have an objectively successful life, but feel good about the life they have, what makes people happy. How come some people stay married happily and some people don't? How come some parents seem to really enjoy their kids, not love them or give them what they need, or they just, you walk into a house and there's like a vibe
Hmm.
and sometimes you're like, this is a nice place to be. And other places you're like, how do we get out of here?
Hmm.
Before anything has even happened, some families
Yeah.
just seem to have that like welcoming, happy, comfortable. Everyone seems to kind of have their groove within the family. How does that work?
Hmm.
Um, so my dad was really interested in that. My mom was a nurse, so she was interested in people from a different angle. They were very different from each other. Um, and they must have had something good together at some point because they married each other, but I don't remember them ever getting along. And they did eventually divorce. And when I was in college, all of my friends basically fell into one of two camps. And many of us had divorced parents by that point.
Hmm.
Half of them were in the I'm not getting married ever. I'm not like I'll never forgive my parents for what they did to me. I don't want to ever put anybody through that, not myself, not a partner, not the kids. I'm not doing that. And the other half was like, we're gonna do it and we're gonna do it better. You
Hmm.
know, I was clearly in the second camp.
Hmm.
I'm gonna figure out the rules of the game and I'm gonna win. No one's gonna take it away from me. I'm gonna figure this out.
Hmm.
And I didn't really think about it too much, but I went to college, I did a whole bunch of things, and then one day I was married, and I discovered that we don't always see eye to eye about things, and that
Sure.
made me kind of anxious. Every time there'd be like the tiniest trivial disagreement, I'd be like, that's it, it's over. I lost the game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what do I do now? And then we had a kid and another kid, and overall things were going really well, but every time they didn't, I would look at it and go, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with them? Why isn't it working? This wasn't what I had in mind. Um, and I never really gave up on that idea, that really solid belief I had that there must be something I can learn that will help me to make this work. It can't be that it's a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Even if half the people are getting divorced, half of them aren't. They must know something. Like, what
Yeah.
are they doing better? Some families do seem to have a good time together. How can I, how can I learn what they know? And
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of pre-internet or very early infancy internet. There's not podcasts, there's not a Google search, there's not nearly the bazillion books or Instagram
Right.
pages that there are about it now. So at first it was actually cassette tapes. I
Oh,
discovered
wow.
that
Okay.
there were like parenting classes that certain moms had and were passing around, that I started listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the lessons I was listening to, I remember the teacher saying something that sounds really shocking, but like, hold on. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, some parents get to the point where they hate their children.
Ooh, that is shocking.
And, but then he went on to say, but what I want you to understand is that's just a function of the two of you, the parent and the child, being sucked into a situation that neither one of you really meant to be in. It's just a feeling. It's not a true statement of who you are. It's
Mm-hmm.
just how you feel because things are going so badly.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't who you really are, and it isn't who they really are. And I'm going to teach you how you, as the parent and the responsible adult, can get out of the mud that you're stuck in. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to keep feeling this way, and you don't need to feel guilty about feeling this way. You just need to learn how to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be a tremendous relief because I said, this guy doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know who all the people are who are passing his recorded classes around,
Right.
he just described how I really feel sometimes, and that I was
Mm-hmm.
much too afraid to
Sure.
say that to anybody. But if he knows how I feel and he says he can fix it, I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I started to learn about what we call family dynamics,
Okay.
which basically means you could be a bunch of really nice people who bring out the worst in each other. And it's not because you mean to do it. It's because we each come to our marriages and our parenting with so many stories in our heads about ourselves, about what we want, that we're not even aware of.
Mm.
And they trip us up. And one of the things he started to teach me was you can learn to pay better attention to yourself. You can learn to understand better what things bother you, why they bother you, and how to not get as bothered. You
Mm.
have the power to do that. It's not like, well, this is just who I am, and so something outside of me needs to change. He was telling me your husband may never change, your child may never change, the weather, the president, the whatever. Like, there might be some things that just are wrong, but that doesn't mean that you have to go crazy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to teach you about how you can work better with your feelings, your responses to difficult situations, and you are going to start creating the change that you want to see in your life.
Mm-hmm.
you he helped. That was the first inkling that I had that there was something different that wasn't about the situation. Because, like, very often you're not the one who started, right? You just walked into the house and all of a sudden your husband or your kid or whoever it is did something wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what. Maybe you walked in and your partner didn't look up from their phone, or you haven't even gotten in the door yet and somebody's already crying at you, right? Like all
Hmm.
kinds of things. And I used to think, well, like, how can I teach them to behave better, you know? And he was
Hmm.
kind of saying the first and most important person that you're in charge of is you. And I want you to start being a better version of you. I want you to start being your own best friend. I want you to start being your own best cheerleader. I want you to start being the partner that you really want to be, whether or not you're getting the support or the love or the whatever it is that you want from your other half.
Hmm.
And that was a big change. He was telling me, lay off the other people, even if you're right and they're wrong and they started and could be, could be. You do you, right?
Mm.
Because you always have unlimited power to do you, and you don't have unlimited power to do those other people or factors. They are
Hmm.
basically out of your control. But
Hmm.
you can change you. And that's going to change a lot of things because you and they exist in relationship to each other.
Yeah.
So if you're putting new or different energy into the situation is going to be different. It isn't necessarily going to change the way you want. It's not like some magic power that you have to make the other people rearrange themselves the way you want, but it isn't going to stay the same, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you shake things up, they're going to shake.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was the beginning. And then I started saying, oh, well, like, if this guy knows something, other people must also know things. And like, are there more classes? Are there books? And then at first, I discovered that there was a program where I could train to teach pre-marriage courses. And I
Okay.
hadn't been married for that many years yet, so I was still kind of new. And I was like, oh, a lot of times the best way to learn anything is to teach it.
Hmm.
So maybe
Very true.
maybe if I train to become a pre-marriage teacher, maybe there are things that I didn't learn before I got started. Maybe by teaching them, it'll like get it, more in order in my own head.
Hmm.
So I started doing that um and it really worked out well. The best way to learn things is to teach them to other people. And when I would be sitting with either brides to be or couples, um, every so often I would have like in the back of my head going, do you hear what you're saying? Do you actually do that? Do you
Uh-huh.
practice what you preach, And then I
Yep.
would say, okay, I'm going to do that. And I would practice and I would say, oh, this, like, it really does work. And then when our fourth was a toddler, he gave me a run for the money more than any of the other kids. I have to say, right now he is a young adult already. He is delightful. He is funny, and he probably was then too. I just couldn't see. He would run away. He was the most upside down kid ever.
Hmm.
And I heard that there was some woman who has like a bazillion children who was teaching workshops for moms. I said, okay,
Okay.
I need this.
Yeah.
Um, and I went and she taught us things that were very similar to what I had heard in those cassettes years ago about listening more carefully to what I'm telling myself about the kind of mom I am, about the kind of kid he is. What story am I telling myself about what's going on, about what's wrong with me or about what's wrong with him and what energy am I putting into the relationship and how can I adjust that and how can it start from me?
Hmm.
And then I saw that that really worked. I saw that I really did get along with him better when I was paradoxically, the more attention I paid to me and how I was behaving and less to how he was behaving, the less trouble we had.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and it sounds really like counterintuitive, but it works.
Yeah.
It really works. And the more I practiced it, and then a friend told me that she had trained in a place that like their whole coaching philosophy is based on like I am responsible first and foremost for me and how I show up in the world and the energy that I create and the way that I speak to people and the way that I behave to people. And I said, can I come?
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been doing it ever since. So I started with the pre-marriage classes and then the parenting classes and then parenting coaching and marriage coaching. But it really all has revolved around the same themes of it could be that somebody else started, somebody else did something wrong, somebody did something, that isn't fair or isn't nice or doesn't work for me. It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
But if I want to change it, I have to start with me. I have to start by understanding where their behavior met me and who I am and like what buttons of mine it's pushing and how I can
Mm-hmm.
take more responsibility for those buttons and how I can create the change that I want to have in my life without being dependent on other people. Even though, of course, I do want things from other people,
Right,
but
of course.
the better I am at managing myself,
Yeah.
the more able I'm going to be to ask for the things that I want in a way that's inviting, in a way that creates a desire on the other person's part to want to give me what I want.
Right,
Um,
right.
and the difference between wants and needs, all these things are common to all the work that I do. So the short answer to sum all that up is I got into coaching because I wanted to coach myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to figure out what it is I need to know so that I can have the kind of family life that I want to have. And I discovered that there are answers out there if we're willing to
Mm-hmm.
take responsibility and we're willing to stop saying, well, but it's not up to me, but it's all on them. If we're willing to do our own work, it's amazing what it can do.
Mm-hmm. I love so much of what you said, and I think that one of the biggest things, which is something that so like I'm in therapy, I've been in therapy for a couple years now, and one of the biggest things that, you just keep coming back to is you only can control yourself, your response, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your choices. You can't control everybody else. It would be great if everyone just does everything that you want and what
It would. It
what
really
you
would.
what you think is best, and what the end result is and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you are only in control of you. And I think so many of us who are entrepreneurs can relate to that too, to extend it even further to like our clients, our audience, our just do what I say. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that and seeing that there is a way through it. And in some ways it's like the most simple kind of way. It's just the way that you don't always default to thinking of because everything else is so loud and distracting and in the moment, like when you said you're not even in the door and the kid is crying, or the dogs are barking, or your husband is in the middle of a project and he can't help you, or whatever the things are. So I really, really appreciate you letting us acknowledge that, that it's a it's something that we all have the power and control to do. It's just bringing an awareness to it, an awareness that we have the power. Like, you've always had the power, my dear, like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz. Like,
Absolutely. And
um,
it's hard. It's really hard for people to accept. It's not
mm-hmm.
complicated. It's not
Yeah,
it's really simple. It's
yeah,
just difficult because the idea that I never have had the control over other people. I was just
right.
selling myself a bill of goods as if I had, but really it was never mine in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ever going to have it. And there isn't anyone who can give it to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is the most difficult obstacle for people to overcome in coaching or therapy.
Yeah.
If you can get over that, the sky is not the limit. If you can get
Yeah.
over that, you can do anything. But
Yeah.
you must be willing to give up the idea that you can be in charge of anybody except yourself. And that is a serious obstacle for so
It
many of
is.
us.
Yeah, it is.
Especially moms who are also entrepreneurs who are like used to being in charge. Like, what do you mean? It's my job to be in charge. That's who I
Mm-hmm.
am. I'm in charge. Like
Hmm.
whatever my little universe is, my husband, the kids, the house, the budget, my business, like that's who I am. What do you, it's like it's something fundamental to the identity of a lot of women being in charge of certain things
Hmm.
and acknowledging that other people are in charge of themselves, especially when those people may not be the people who are doing everything that you want them to do. It's really, really hard to accept. But when you do, it opens up so many wonderful possibilities for better relationships, for closer relationships, for better communication, for more real intimacy. It's an amazing change, but you just to use a horrible cliched phrase, but you do need to trust the process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think another good thing that that you mentioned too, which I think a lot of us can relate to, is when you said, I knew that I wanted to take these classes for me. I wanted to learn this knowledge for me. I wanted this coaching and guidance for me. And then it ended up becoming like your passion and your calling and your business. And I think it goes back to how I always say, like, very often our ideal client is ourselves a few years ago. And,
Totally.
like in my content strategy course, the first module is all about, refine or defining your ideal client. And it's so funny because you can like reference and lean back on, okay, where was I when I was struggling with this issue? Or where was I when I really needed this help or I needed to learn this skill or whatever? So I love that you kind of, started from a very personal, of course, you started from a very personal spot. So I think, just in terms of like kind of understanding the challenge that is out there, I feel like, and I see this in a lot of the online groups that I'm in, and even in my own circle, um, many women start businesses or they pursue, creative passions or whatever, but they really struggle sometimes, often, with feeling a lack of support at home. Um, and why do you think that that is such a common issue?
A great question. Um, I think it's because we don't make ourselves get specific enough.
Hmm.
When you're talking to a client who's a woman entrepreneur about who her potential clients are, and she tells you, I help women, all women, tall
Hmm.
women, short women, white women, black women, American women,
Hmm.
rich women, poor women, educated women, healthy women, sick women. What, you know, you need
Mm,
to narrow it down a bit. Um, it's so important to be specific.
mm,
And being specific is one of the most helpful things we can do to switch from emotional drama. Ah,
mm.
no, I'm all alone in this. I'm not getting any support. You don't help me. You don't care. Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. What would being supported look like?
Mm.
What exactly are you asking for when you say, I wish he would support me? I wish I was supported. Different women are going to give you different answers to that question. It doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. And you need
Yeah.
to be able to really be specific and practical about what that means. Are you asking for a loan? Are you
Hmm.
asking for him to tell you to break a leg every morning when you leave to the office? Do you want him to read your posts and give you feedback and tell you that they're great or tell you how to make them better? Do you want him to help you network? Like what support are you asking for?
Hmm.
Um, do you know who you want the support from? Is it just like a feeling that there's nobody out there who supports me? Or is it your mother, father, husband, coworker? Who is it you want the support from? What would that support look like? Do you think that they know that that's the support that you want?
Right. That's a really good question.
Women are
Yeah.
sometimes very good mind readers,
Yes.
but that doesn't mean that other people read our minds
Yeah.
or that they're reading them accurately, it might be a good idea to tell the people whose support we want what support we're looking for, and
Hmm.
then ask them to give it to us. And I want to say
Yeah.
something really important about ask. Very often, if you're having this conversation with someone, she'll say, well, but of course, I've asked him a million times. So I'll say to a woman like that, really tell me exactly what it is that you said.
Hmm.
First of all,
Let's
if
break
it,
this down.
let's break this down, right? If it was just a, how come you never, that's not asking, honey,
Hmm.
right? Did you really ask? Like if you went to your neighbor and you knocked on the door and I said, I'm baking a birthday cake, but I ran out of sugar. Do you have a cup of sugar for me? And she said, I'm sorry, I don't have any either. Would you be angry at her? She like
Right.
owes it to you to have a cup of sugar for you. What are you going to do? She doesn't have a cup of sugar. She's sorry. She can't help you, right? But very often when it comes to the people who are closest to us, we do think that they owe it to us. And so we're not really asking, even if the words we say are very sweet, right? And this is another very important thing to understand. We are members of the animal kingdom, okay?
Hmm.
We communicate in many ways that are beyond words. It doesn't just matter. Of course, it helps to use the right words or to use friendly, kind, respectful words, but it also matters a whole hell of a lot how you feel when you say them and the energy that you're projecting when you say them, right?
Very good
Because
point.
I
Yeah.
could put a big smile on my face and tell somebody, have a nice day. And they know and I know that what I really mean is go to hell.
Yes.
Right? So the ask isn't just the words. It's also what do I really think and feel when I'm asking him? Really, am I using ask words, but inside I'm demanding it because I think he owes it to me? Because the the energetic thing that happens between people is the stronger I pull very often, the stronger they pull back.
Mm.
If what I want is for someone to come close to me, I actually need to work on being relaxed and open. And then they feel that they're coming to me of their own free will.
Hmm.
And the more I pull, the more they feel like, well, hey, I don't work for you. Why are you trying to boss me? Why are you trying to push me around? Why are you telling me what I got to do? You know?
Yeah.
So it's really important to try to reflect quietly or listen to what's going on in our heads or even just practice in front of a mirror to do something that will help me to be a little more self-aware than may have been until now, not just of the words, but how I really feel about the person or the people that I'm asking from, and check in with myself about whether that's really an ask. Right?
Yeah.
Ask means that it's up to them to say yes or no. If the
Yeah.
only acceptable answer is yes, I'm not asking.
Hmm. Hmm. That is a very, very fair and good point. Um, because yeah, like you're just like what you said, like, okay, I'm smiling really nice. I'm saying have a nice day, but really I'm saying, go to hell. I think we can preload our quote unquote asks, but really it's a demand or a something else, shrouded in something else. So I think I appreciate you bringing the awareness to that, and I like the idea of practicing in a mirror too. I think that's something easy that folks can try, when they're by themselves, to see how it really feels and reads, and maybe even film yourself, with your phone and watch it back. That can be helpful too. So talking about like navigating some maybe unsupportive relationships that one might have in their life as a business owner. Um, if someone's partner or their family, their friends, whatever it is, if they don't like get what they do, they don't get the business, they don't get the product, the service, the brand, whatever it is, how can the business owner, how can she communicate her needs without feeling like dismissed about, they don't get it, they don't get what I'm doing, they don't believe in me, they don't support me, like, but they want to they want to explain themselves or defend themselves or, how can they maybe approach that?
So that's great. I love that question. Um, I have this thing. I don't know if it's an idea or a principle or I call it glorious okayness. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And it's something that we each can carry around inside of ourselves. And it's what Brene Brown would call your worth, right? It's this knowing that you matter just because you exist. You're a human being, and nobody else can limit that or measure it or take it away from you or change it in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this very solid sense of your worth and your value as a person. And it doesn't have to do with being right or being perfect, which is why I call it okayness, right? It's gloriously okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's both. Glorious because I really think that every single person is special and
Mm-hmm.
precious. And okay because you don't need to be like killing it, crushing it, on top of your game. You could be like somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's that phrase kind of encapsulates both the gloriousness of just being me, and also that I don't need to do anything super duper to be glorious. I already am. So it's like the glorious and the okay together.
Mm-hmm.
The more in tune with that we are, the less other people can mess around with us.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, like when you said, how can we defend whatever it is? Somebody who's in touch with her glorious okayness in a really solid way rarely needs to defend herself. She might
Good
want to
point.
share something, she might want to explain something, right? So if I come to Thanksgiving or Christmas or just a weekend at home with my folks and a brother, sister, whatever, and they don't really get me or what I'm doing, I might want to take some time, probably not exactly then and there, but after the weekend, and ask myself what I think is going on, right?
Okay.
Why do I feel small or insecure or like how do they suddenly make my generally self-secure person suddenly feel like jelly? Like why, how do they do that to me? What is that? What's going on there? How do I explain it? You know, you what do I really think they think about me? Do I really think that they don't care about me? Do I think that they don't want what's best for me?
Mm-hmm.
Might there be a different answer?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Very often we're playing out the same roles we've had in the family since we were like 5, but we're not 5 anymore.
Right.
But that little girl that we carry around inside ourselves is very quick to hijack the show anytime we feel insecure.
Oh my God, so true.
And the more our grown-up self is in touch with our glorious okayness, the less that little girl, the fewer tantrums she's going to have.
Mm-hmm.
She's always going to be part of us, but when we feel insecure, she just like, she takes over.
Yeah.
She's like, you can't do that to me. I won't. You have to understand that she's small. She's scared. She doesn't know that it's going to be okay. She doesn't know that she's going to be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
her job, and and she is actually on my side. Okay. It's her job to freak out when she thinks that something is dangerous or uncomfortable or not right for her because like if she screams loud enough, maybe somebody will pay attention to her and take care of her. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But she's not the enemy. Okay. And she's also not all of me. She's just
Right.
one little part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can listen to her, not with fear, not as if she's like a big scary monster. If I can realize that she's small and she's scared, and if I can have compassion for her and not worry about it, right? And just, oh, like I'll have conversations with her, because she
Yeah.
she isn't someone else. She's part of me, and if I can just tell her like, "Oh, honey, you're so scared right now. I understand. Like I get it. Do you want a hug? You know, a cookie, a glass of milk? You know, like, can I tell you a story and put you down for a nap?" Kind of thing,
Hmm.
Some people actually just, you know, body work is not my main line of work, but really some people actually practice hugging themselves and
Hmm.
and find it very
Hmm.
reassuring. Um, so learning to understand that all the people out there who don't understand me are not necessarily the enemy. I don't need to beat them. I don't need to vanquish them, defeat them. I don't like it's not a war. I don't need to defend myself. I need to find a new language to talk to myself about this whole situation, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, like, especially when it's parents, if I feel defensive about my parents not understanding me, not agreeing with me, not supporting me, that's probably not a new thing. That's probably been going on our whole life. And one of the most radical things that we can do as adult children is to take a really, really, really deep breath and imagine something we haven't imagined in a long time, that maybe our parents really do want what's best for us and they just have different ideas than us. And
Hmm.
we don't have to accept their ideas, but what would happen if, instead of for the bazillionth time going to them and wanting to convince them that I understand me better and they don't understand me, and if they've never understood me and could they finally just understand me, what would happen if I went to them and I looked up to them as parents and I said, there's something I've been working on for a long time, and it hasn't actually been going the way I want it to go. Like being able to admit that to your parents. Oh, instant heart attack. It hasn't actually been succeeding the way I would like to do. I was wondering if I could talk to you about it. Like that's an insane recalibration of the whole relationship. They
Yeah.
might not even understand what's going on, but they also probably have been craving for a long time just to be acknowledged as parents.
Hmm.
And, they might not tell you what you want to hear, and that's okay. You don't need to accept it. You don't need to obey. You're an adult now. You get to run your own life. But putting yourself in the child position in the relationship can really free up a lot of things.
Hmm.
Like it's something worth trying as an experiment.
Hmm.
And very often the dynamic is there with siblings as well. If they're older than you, if they're younger than you, like you've probably been trying to sell a certain version of yourself that they're not buying. What if you let go of having to sell? What if you just showed up and said, "This is who I am. And I'm fine with me, and I'm going to be fine with you," and not trying to, like, hook them into your story, you
You're
know?
showing up with your glorious okayness.
Showing up with your glorious okayness and letting them have theirs,
Hmm.
because very often we don't actually treat people the way we would want to be treated. It's like we want to be understood, but we don't acknowledge that they also want to be understood. Like, when's the last time I asked myself about those other people who never understand me? What about them? Well, I know all the things they don't understand about me. When's the last time I asked myself what things I might not understand about them?
Hmm.
Right? Maybe they're also craving some kind of understanding or interest or something from me that I haven't been giving them.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I
Yeah.
ask myself that question, I might discover something that I never noticed before.
Yeah. Very good point. And when you said this is a very radical thing I'm about to say, I bet a bunch of listeners are like, oh my God, like, yes, I've never thought of that. When's the last time I did that? and kind of invited that kind of conversation because really, like, that's you're being very vulnerable. You're
Yeah.
vulnerable as hell to do that. But the good like the good news of that too is that just like Malka said, like you don't have to obey what they're saying. You don't have to listen to what they're saying, but you're giving the opportunity for that exchange of dialogue and that, conversation to maybe come to some understanding and to see where they're really at and what they really think. And that, they do want what's best for you. It's just you have different ideas of what that can mean. And I also loved everything that you said about the little girl, that's always inside all of us. Like I put up a post a couple months ago of a framed photo of myself at like 5 years old or something that I keep on my desk because that kid is my creative director. Like she's my creative director for my business. She is behind everything. Um, and yeah, we're all taking care of our younger selves. I also like what you said about, when I had asked about when they don't get our business or they, we might feel dismissed or whatever. I also think it's fair that some of that may be projection on our part too, because it may not be that a partner or a family member is like actively discouraging our business dreams. It may be some projection and like, internal stuff that we're doing. Like maybe, maybe we're feeling guilty about prioritizing our business over, traditional expectations of marriage or family or friendship or, whatever. And we're turning that into a bad thing. And kind of putting the blame elsewhere and going back to our original, the first question we talked about controlling yourself and what are the conversations that you can have with yourself? What are the decisions you can make yourself to kind of address these things? So going into like actual strategies, I guess, for building that kind of support. Um, what would you say are maybe some boundaries that women can set, like between work and home life, especially maybe when working from home? So many folks work from home now, whether you have a small business or not, although most of my audience, does have a small business. Most of the time those are home businesses. So you've got to run the house, you've got to run the business, you've got to run the marriage and the family and all of that stuff. So can you talk a little bit about that, or maybe even some like mindset shifts that may be helpful, to feel more confident in managing all of that stuff without always needing that external validation?
Right. So the first thing is I don't like the word boundaries.
Okay, okay,
I know it's a very popular word, but to me, boundaries have to do with war,
okay, okay,
conflict, right? And um, yes, the struggle is real, but I don't want to give it any more power than it needs to have.
okay,
So I just don't love the word boundaries. I would want to encourage a woman who's thinking about her boundaries to say, well, let's put the word boundaries on the side. Describe to me a situation of things in which things are not going well, right?
okay.
Let me help me to understand better what problem you're trying to solve. Is it
Mm-hmm.
that you're working in your home office and your kids keep coming into the office? Is it that nobody's bothering you, but you feel guilty about what it is you're supposed to be doing? Is it something else? Right. So again, we need to, anytime something's not working, it's really important to get specific. Not just to
Okay,
say, it's not working. I feel bad. My boundaries are a mess. Give me an example. Tell me a story in which whatever it is happened, and let's try to parse that. Let's figure out, are there other people involved? Is it just all the different parts of you that are fighting with each other, right? Because those are also, different kinds of situations.
mm-hmm.
Another thing so getting specific is probably the most important thing because too often what women are trying to do is solve all the problems with some kind of like magic recipe or
Yeah.
formula or, or
Get
something,
it all
right?
solved, one and done. Yeah.
Get it all solved, one and done. That's not going to happen,
Hmm.
right? But if we break it down, this is the husband, this is the money, this is the children, this is the guilt, this is, all then we can address them one at a time. It isn't going to be a one and done. I don't believe in one and done.
Hmm.
It's like if I came to a nutritionist and I said, I want to lose 35 pounds and I want it to happen by next Sunday. Well, I can build a program with you in which you will lose that weight, but it's not going to happen by next Sunday, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or if I go to the gym and I say, I want my whole body to look like this picture and I want to happen in 2 months from now. I don't think so.
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
So any real plan to achieve any goal is going to be just that. It's going to be a plan. It's going to have a whole bunch of steps. So I want to know what your goal is. I want to know where you are, where you want to get, and then I'm going to help you to fill in all the steps. And it's going to be a lot of small steps that we practice over and over and over again to get where we're going to go.
Hmm.
So there's the getting specific about the problem that I want to solve, and then there's the understanding that there's not just like some magic bullet.
Hmm.
And so those two things together, I think, are going to be really important.
Yeah.
And they work together, of course. You know,
Yeah.
e- Everything is what's everything.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Um, that's so helpful because first of all, just the note you gave at the top about specificity. I feel like that can carry over to so many things. Like not just what you were
Sure.
saying about mind reading, which is absolutely something that I know I'm guilty of that because I emotionally monitor everyone in my life and I always think I know what everyone's thinking and all of that. And so I just expect the same, I guess. So
So many
uh
women do. You're not alone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But there's I forget who said it, but there's a famous quote that's like, you don't get what you don't ask for. And I wish that I could hold that more in my active memory of like I think it's really good advice.
Mhm.
And to yeah, state what you need and be specific about that and ask for help with something specific. I think is just completely priceless, honestly.
And about the magic bullet, especially if it's a woman who's also a mom.
Hmm.
Like, do you have one kids, three kids, seven kids? Are they all under the age of, whatever? Are you talking about teenagers, little kids, mixed bag? Like, whatever it is, what works for you now isn't necessarily the thing that's going to work for you next week or next year or in 3 years from now.
Hmm.
So that's also like, well, how can I figure out what works? We can figure out what works, but there's another aspect of like the magic bullet fantasy is understanding that just because we figure out what's going to work for you best right now doesn't mean you're not going to have to refigure it out again
Yeah,
in
yeah.
6 weeks, 6 months, a couple of years. Like it's not, that's another aspect of the one and done that people sometimes have this fantasy, like I'll figure it out once and then no, you're going to grow and change. Your husband or wife is going to grow and change. Your kids are going to grow and change. Life is dynamic.
Yep, yep. I say also that can carry over even like to talk about um like my business, like that same advice is what I say to folks when like maybe they're looking for a brand refresh, or their business is changing, so therefore their website needs to change. Their website's like a living thing, okay, we're going to renovate
Mhm.
the home, we're going to add on a new wing, we're going to,
Exactly.
add new technology, paint the walls, and like I'm referring to the website, and it's
Hmm.
not that it's not that something is just like to your point, it's not solved one time and that's the end of it. Like we're
Right.
gonna pick it up again in, 2 months or 5 years or whatever the thing is, and that's important. Um, and so you you had mentioned the mini mind at the beginning, and I appreciate that. We're just getting started now. But one of the reasons I created that too was because I wanted to have a spot for women to have that like support system outside of their immediate family too. So whether that's in my mini mind or not doesn't matter, but I do think having a circle of friends, having, business communities or mentors or somewhere where you can go for you and your business, I think is important too. So, can you talk I just stumbled over my word, sorry. Could you talk a bit about having friends or a circle around you or others who get it to kind of support you with that? Because I feel like women, I know I struggle with this too, like we're battling imposter syndrome, um, and we feel that there's a lack of support. Maybe there's not, maybe it's us not being specific, like you're saying.
It
But
could be both.
it's helpful to have women to talk to about that. Yeah.
100%. Look, overall, this is a stereotype, okay? Which means that if you're a woman and you're not like this, that's fine. You're allowed to be however you want to be. But stereotypes very often have some truth to them, right? And the
Hmm.
stereotype is that women talk more, are more social, like to do things together, right? We even go to the bathroom together, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, if you're a woman who like does everything solo, a lone wolf kind of thing, and it works for you, go ahead. Fantastic. You don't need to change a thing. You do you. But many women really are social creatures. One of the reasons that I go to a gym and take a class instead of just theoretically, I could do the same exercises at home, right? I mostly
Hmm.
do body weight exercise. I don't need a lot of fancy equipment, but um, I'm much more likely to do the exercise if I'm doing it with a group of people who I've gotten to know and I feel comfortable with them and we're friendly and we joke and we laugh around and we encourage each other. That to me um, just makes exercise it makes it a part of my life that I don't need to fight with myself to do anymore, right?
Hmm.
Is what it does, right? It just makes it easy for me to show up because I'm showing up to a place where people know me and they're happy to see me and I feel comfortable and there's like a feeling of trust and support. Um, so I think a lot of women are looking for that in all kinds of contexts. It could be the gym. It could be any kind of a nutrition, fitness, whatever kind of group. That's why support groups exist for women going through some kind of treatment for some kind of a disease, or
Hmm.
women going through the experience of grief and loss. We're very often be offered a support group because it helps so much to know that it's not just me, right?
Right.
That's why
Yes.
that's why group work in general, group therapy or group coaching program is it's harder for people to overcome their embarrassment
Yeah.
and actually join a group, but for those who do, it's much more powerful. And it doesn't matter if it's parenting coaching, marriage coaching, business coaching, when you when anything is wrong, there tends to be a sense of there's something wrong with me. I'm a failure. It makes me feel very isolating. It makes me harder for me to reach out and ask for what I want because I'm getting like stucker and stucker in the story that it's about me and my failure and what's wrong with me. When you sit in a group over and over and over again, week after week, and you hear other women sharing their stories of what's difficult for them in their breast cancer, in their grief, in their business development, in their fitness, in their weight management, and whatever it is.
Hmm.
That's like I could tell you, sister, it's not just you. Everybody's like this. Everybody has, deep down, you're not really going to believe me.
Mm.
Even if the amount of space it takes up in your head and your heart gets smaller, even if we dial the volume down on it, there's going to be this little piece of you that still believes, it's just me. But when you're in a group, there's
Yeah.
something so powerful about hearing the other women tell it themselves that can really heal that place, that really makes it true to us that it's not just me. And
Hmm.
that is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's refreshing. and it's guilt relieving and it's pressure relieving. And very often it gives us the opportunity to help each other, which is one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, groups is whatever it is that you wish was better in your life. If you can do it in a group, you have the power of the group behind you. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. Like I'm in a bunch of like I run the mini mind, but I'm in a bunch of LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, different Slack, conversations and different things where we're just maybe something is graphic design related, or this one is, women in business related, this one's social media related, whatever. But it's just so helpful to, yeah, you're not alone. Like here's someone telling the same story of something I went through last year, or oh, okay, I was going to ask about this, but I was nervous. Good, someone else mentioned it. Now I can, I can read their experience, or,
It's so
I could,
reassuring.
yeah, I can DM them and see like they came out of it, they did okay, they got through it. Like that makes me
Hmm.
have hope that, I can do the same.
I want to say
Um,
something important about different
yeah.
kinds of groups. The
Mm-hmm.
kind of groups that we're talking about are the groups where there's a limited number of people
Mm-hmm.
and there's mutual commitment and trust in the group. Like
Yes.
there's agreed
Yes.
upon rules in the group, and we are all here to help each other out together.
Mm-hmm.
These gigantic Facebook groups with hundreds or thousands of women,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the kind of group that I mean. They might
Yeah.
be good for something, but overall, I don't love them. I especially
Mm-hmm.
don't love them when women be like, this is what happened to me with my husband, with my kid, with my business. You know what? Whatever possible opinion is out there, you're going to get seven of them. So like
Yeah.
how has that really helped you? In other words, it's not there's so much noise on these groups and they also tend to be very opinionated, very judgy, like the least nice people speak up the loudest in those
Oh,
groups.
yes, that is true.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's not the kind of group that we mean. If there's anybody
Yeah.
who's in those groups and it's helping you for something, fine. But we're talking about a different kind of group where we all know each other
Yeah.
and we all um, respect each other's differences,
Mm-hmm.
and have committed to going through some kind of process with each other. And
Yeah, a
where
more
we
intimate setting. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and where we all feel safe with ourselves and each other, in that group. What makes vulnerability safe is my glorious okayness, right? I have to
Hmm.
feel okay enough with who I am that I'm safe to share that with other people. Um, but also, the mutual respect in the group.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. That's a really important point. Yeah, some of the groups are out of control. And plus, if you're looking for, like I always say, there's a group for everything. So if you're looking to join a group that's about your industry or your obstacle that you're dealing with right now, or maybe a health thing or whatever, if you're going and looking for those groups, do, but look in there to see how many members there are, look how active it is and all that kind of stuff. Because you don't want to join something that's not active, and you don't want to join something, to Malka's point, that has, a gazillion people in there, where it's going to be hard to get true support and have your stuff seen, and have people respond to you, because there's just too much going on. So yeah, that's a good piece of advice too. Um, so I'm just loving this chat. This is so, so helpful. And I wonder, if there's someone listening today who is feeling unsupported, feeling overwhelmed, feeling discouraged from their business dream, from what they're working on, from what they're trying to build, because of all the other things on their plate, even though maybe they're trying to get their business going to help, in the home with their family, like to, there's someone I know who retired her husband at 40 years old because her business took off, and that's amazing. But whether, someone is a mom or not, whether they are married or not, um, they're just feeling that that lack of support, and they're just totally overloaded. What's one small step they can take today to feel empowered? We've already mentioned several things they can do, but if you were going to leave them with something that's simple, that's easy, that they can do for themselves today, what would you say to that?
Right.
Right. Oh.
Use a piece of paper, a notebook, a journal, and a pen or a pencil, and try to get specific with the page.
Mm-hmm.
Write out all the things that matter to you, your values, your why, right? This business that you're trying to get off the ground, together with all the other things that you do, why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to the world? Why is this worth your trouble, right? Like, why does this really matter? And then, what are the problems? At the beginning, you really just want a brain dump. Just
Yeah. I love
whatever
a
it
good
is that's
brain dump.
going on. Yeah, just write, 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 write.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After the dumping, then you can sort and sift. A lot of times our mind is like a jumbled up jewelry box, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not gonna find the earring or the whatever it is that you're looking there probably until you dump the whole thing out, turn on the light, and spend some time untangling all the jumbled up stuff. And then when you lay it out, you can say, oh, now I see. I have so and so many necklaces, so and so many earrings, so and so many whatever. Do I want to keep it all? Can some of it go? How can I organize it so that it works better?
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to the page, take all the mumbledy jumbledy stuff that's in your brain, start writing it, and really just make yourself just write it out however it comes. And then when you've written like that for a while, it could be that you're going to sit down and do it for an hour, or maybe you can just do it for like 3 minutes every day, and it'll take you a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. Then go back to it, and
Mm-hmm.
look at it, either with your eyes or maybe with some colored pencils or highlighters or something, and start looking for the themes, right? What's
Mm.
conflicting with what? What do you feel is going well? What's going not well? Every time I try to do this, that happens. Like where are the bumper cars hitting the wall instead of, going straight? Try to see what's going on there and then ask
Mm-hmm.
yourself, can I do all of these things? Maybe you can't. Maybe there are not enough hours in the day. Maybe there's not enough money right now. Maybe I don't know. You may decide to back off a certain thing. And that doesn't mean you have to give it up forever. Maybe you need to just back off it for a couple of weeks or months. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone just needs to get from daycare to public school and then you'll have a little more money. Or maybe someone needs to graduate and move out and then you'll be able to do whatever. Like, doing this kind of organizational work doesn't necessarily mean that everything will immediately fall into place, but it'll
Sure.
help you to have a better understanding of what you have, what's missing, what you want to do, you know, and then start asking yourself, well, now that I understand where I am, right, and what I want, what one step can I take to move myself closer to my goal?
Mm-hmm. And it's okay that those steps are small, by the way. Can just to call
Yeah,
that out.
please keep them small.
Keep them small. Yeah, they add up.
Small steps repeated many times
Mm-hmm.
are the answer to building muscle, losing fat, getting a degree, building my skill, whether it's cooking or crocheting or bowling or managing a business. Small steps repeated often is the way we build skill. It's the way we build strength. It's the way we build confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Please keep the steps small.
Yeah.
Small steps
It,
get such a bad rap, but small steps are actually the only way anybody ever got anywhere.
it's completely true. They add up and it keeps you from burnout and it keeps things moving forward little by little. And then you can look back and you're so excited because you see how far you've come. And there's a quote that Andre DeShields, he's a Tony Award winning actor. He gave his speech. He's like a legend. And one of the things he said at the end of his speech is that uh what did he say? The fastest way to get to where you want to go is slowly. And or I think that's what he said. And I just
So
love that
true.
quote, and it's so true. And like it took me a minute to understand it. But that's really the only way that this is going to happen. And so I just say that to you listening. Small steps are okay, and they're actually great, and that's what you
They're
should be
wonderful.
doing. That's what you should be doing. And if something seems like a mountain of a task, how can we break it down into the smallest steps? Uh,
Absolutely.
yep.
And the impatience is also that little girl saying, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, I need it to all be good. And I need it to all be good now.
Yep.
Right? And you can
Yep.
tell her, oh, honey, we're fine. We're already fine and we're gonna be better. And it isn't all gonna happen immediately, and that's okay.
It is okay. And we're gonna get the cookie and the milk and we're gonna go take a nap, like you said.
Right.
That's so good. Malka, I just love you so much. And I love
Oh,
this
thank you. I love you
conversation.
too.
This is so helpful. And for those listening, I want you to check out the show notes for this episode because I'm going to put all of Malka's links in there so you can find her on socials, you can find her website, you can find her awesome newsletter on Substack. And yeah, she is here to support you. And
Yes, I am.
so am I. And so I'm so glad to have you here. Anything else you want to add before we close out our episode? And thank you again so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. I will add one more thing. I spoke to
Hmm.
somebody recently who um, is facing a major midlife transition that she didn't really want.
Hmm.
Um, and she's really uncertain about the future. And the most reassuring thing I could think of to say to her was, you are already the future version of your earlier self.
Mm.
So trust yourself that you can continue and that in the future you will again be able to look back and go, oh, hey, I made it. Like I
Hmm.
used to be there and look at where I am now. So, look back. We've all come a long way. Even if we aren't where we want to be, we've all had a journey. We've
Hmm.
all done some amazing things in our lives, whether it's in our families, whether it's in our work. We've all learned a couple of things and we've done a couple of things. And I think it's really important to reassure ourselves and to appreciate how far we've come and not only look at how far still we want to go.
Mm. So good. So true. Yeah, there's a trend going around on social right now. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's the idea of writing a letter to your younger self or meeting your younger self for lunch and like what you as your older self would say to your younger self. And would that be, you know, reassuring? Would that surprise the younger self? Would that, scare the younger self? But yeah, like it's so true. Like you got through it. You're here today. You've grown, you've learned. And another example of this whole thing too is like I think I said it in one past episode, like did you ever go back through your camera roll on your phone from, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever, and you just see all of the things that not only you went through, but also all of the things that were happening simultaneously that you were juggling, that you were experiencing, that you were going through, and like you got through them. You are stronger than you know. And yes, we all want softness. We don't want to always have to be so strong. We want things to be easy. But you did it. You're here.
Right.
You got through it.
And
And that's
right.
such a
And we're
good
not
reminder.
saying, and we're not saying that it's going to be easy
Right,
or
right.
that it's going to be soft or comfortable. It might be scary and challenging and really difficult.
Hmm.
And I don't know, but the one thing I know is that you can do it.
Yeah, yeah. Love that. With nothing more needing to be said. Love it, love it. Malka, thank you so, so much.
Thank you
Um,
too.
you're welcome. My pleasure. And everyone, don't forget to check the show notes for all of Malka's links. Find her online. She's here to help. And thank you for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.